I have worked with survivors of childhood trauma that remain psychologically stuck. So they're unable to move forward and reach their full potential. Uh, like I said, the mind is such a powerful tool. Childhood trauma tends to remain internalized in many of us. And these cases of childhood trauma remain unresolved. So that has the potential to change our worldview. So as you mentioned of my profession, I can tell you a little bit about my personal story. I am a
Mhm.
survivor of childhood trauma. And I'm also a survivor of being trafficked as a teen. I experienced homelessness and drug addiction. So this set my mind to believe not only did I not matter, but I would never achieve a level of success. So that mindset was ingrained in me based on the trauma that I went through. So trauma has a tendency to sabotage our ability for personal growth. Um, Now, what we think about is how can we get out of that mindset? How can we break free from the shackles of childhood trauma? And as I mentioned, unresolved trauma affects our adult life in many ways, including self acceptance, healthy decision making, and attachment issues that lead to complicated relationships, which is a lot of what we see, especially in our society, that people tend to give up. It's too hard to work through
Mhm.
things. So, with this, I want to talk about the power of mindset and personal growth. So, we see that the concept of mindset matters is not merely a catchphrase, but I believe it's a foundational truth in achieving our goals and aspirations. So, today I invite everyone to explore with me how our mindset can serve as a catalyst in transforming trauma into pathways to success. But first, of course, we must understand trauma and its profound impact on our personal growth, which is so important for us to have a successful and a happy, fulfilling life. So, as I mentioned, I specialize in trauma recovery. I have had the privilege of witnessing firsthand the devastation of of unresolved childhood trauma on individuals' lives, and what that has done for them. Many of my clients have described feeling trapped in a relentless cycle of depression and anxiety. That has affected their ability to break free and fulfill their potential. Whether experienced in childhood or later in life, trauma does create psychological barriers. And this, I have seen, can damage personal growth and impede the journey to success. So I personally understand the struggle. I too once found myself psychologically stuck in what I call a trauma induced mindset.
Mhm.
So many of us, despite appearing perhaps successful on the outside, which is something that I had gone through. And on the outside, I looked as I was thriving, but internally, I battled with symptoms of PTSD. I had depression, anxiety, and this affected my daily life. And of course, it did impede my personal growth. And this is something we've seen many times with uh, people that have suffered with a trauma and it remains unresolved. So what I've seen is this inconsistency. It's between the outward competence and the inward turmoil. It has it impacted me, and I struggled to find a way to help myself because on the outside, I was actually helping others, and I saw
Mhm.
that I wasn't progressing to the level of success that I knew my potential could have been, and this was when I was already, dealing with different, platforms in helping survivors of trafficking. So, my journey to overcoming childhood trauma, it actually became a turning point, not just in my life, but in my career in helping survivors of trafficking as well. And so this just it was very insightful to know what that mindset was for the survivors that I worked with. And so understanding this, which is really remarkable, led me to develop it's a transformative technique, but it not only empowered me, but once I started to practice it and I saw it guided many of the people I worked with towards recovery. And I was able to see the transformation they had, and they were becoming successful in what they thought they could never achieve. So it works. I saw it work. I've done it for myself. and I continue to practice that technique.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm showing
So,
it.
would you be willing to kind of give us a couple of ideas on what the technique is?
Absolutely. So we as humans, as you said, little traumas, big traumas, we have traumas. Traumas happen normally because we are being hurt or we're hurt by others. And mine, for example, was abuse and trafficking. And a lot of the people that I've worked with, my clients, they've also had unresolved childhood trauma. What
Mm,
is unresolved childhood trauma? What does that look like? Well, in many cases, it's because the abusers, we could say people that hurt you in your life, have never come to a point of apologizing for what they did to you. And
mm,
if we think about that, even with close family members that have wronged us, we want them to apologize. It's as if we're not getting over what happened unless they apologize. And so unresolved trauma, it's deeply introspective. It's a process. And so what the technique that I actually developed at the time was to write letters. And I call this writing letters to
mm,
your soul. These
mm,
letters are written from the perspective of the people that hurt you. So what I needed to hear, and I saw this in many of my clients once I started putting the technique in and as an intervention, is they represent an inherent psychological need to hear our offenders apologize for what they did to us. And it's interesting, like I said, somebody wrongs us, we want them to apologize. And when that doesn't happen, that door remains open, causes anger, resentment. So
mm,
perhaps that hearing of apology is to bring emotional closure to the pain that they caused. And so these letters, what I did was I wrote the letters from the perspective of the people that hurt me, my abusers, many of whom I do not recall names, some faces. And being a survivor of trafficking, there's a lot of uh, disassociation, which causes you not to remember a lot of the perpetrators. So
mhm,
I wrote these letters in the perspective that they were telling me what I needed to hear. I needed the apologies, and I could tell you how powerful the words on paper became. So
mm,
I would tell them, okay, so what are the things that you need to hear that you never heard, or perhaps you wish they could have said? And I could tell you, JB, these words are such as, I am sorry for hurting you, or it was not your fault. And another one
mm,
is that you matter. These are so powerful. These words, they actually lead to a journey of healing and resetting. It's like a resetting your mindset from a mindset
mhm,
of trauma to a mindset of personal growth and success, because you have reached a point, perhaps, that there's that closure that you needed to move on with your life. So, what I say is imagine the emotional impact of putting these powerful words on paper. And so when
mm,
you write these letters, you mail them back to yourself, or you mail them to yourself. And so when the letter returns to you and you read those words, it's a profound transformation. I can talk about my experience. When I received the letters, I actually held onto them for a few days. I was scared to read them because it was the fear of knowing that this was so real. This is something that had hurt me. This is something that oppressed my ability to progress in my life. And so when I started reading the letters, I was sobbing. I was shaking.
mm,
I was just so taken by this internal struggle that was being released. And it was just the mind. We go back to that mindset, how powerful it is. So I like to say that this exercise, this technique, it transcends mere forgiveness of others, but it helps to heal deep-rooted wounds of pain that have shifted our mindset from reaching our potential. And I like to say that this technique does not in any way absolve anyone for what they did, of course.
oh,
And
mhm,
it's just acknowledging the roots of the trauma, acknowledging them, putting getting your power back, because that power of reading those words and reading from the perspective of our abusers saying that they apologize for what they did to us, that shifts our mindset. And it's an intentional step towards healing and growth. So in my practice, I often talk about famous people that have overcome trauma and adversity. which enabled them
Mhm.
to become successful. And these people are admired around the world. So I perhaps inspired by their journey through life and success. So two of these figures, one, of course, Oprah Winfrey, and the other, Maya
Mhm.
Angelou. They
Mhm.
both faced harrowing childhoods. They were marked by abuse, adversity. For example, Oprah Winfrey, through her resilience and determination, as we have seen, transformed her personal challenge into a platform for advocacy and empowerment, which is something that I have done with my life. Is I take my pain, I take my experience, and I share it so that survivors know they're not alone and they can overcome. So in Maya Angelou, through her literary expertise and invincible spirit, she
Mm.
elevated her experiences into works of art. And though they continue to inspire us now, and they will continue through generations. So just these stories, they just the shift of mindset, that mindset that they had, they were able to just change what they were thinking, which changed their worldview, and that's what
Mm.
that's what we have.